So, all right, we talked about Roaring Twenties. All right, I guess we can go into talking a little bit about, since it is Fourth of July coming up. We could talk about the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to talk about this because it's this declaration is kind of like why we are all here existing today,
Right.
and I think now more so than ever, I think it's really important to revisit the past, and we hear a lot of all these negative things of like the founding fathers now, like, oh well, they were just a bunch of slave owners, they were this and that, and so we have to discount like kind of like what they're talking about, and it's like, well, okay, yeah, they had obviously some different viewpoints than we do. We also have to remember, and this when we look back to history, we have to, we can't just judge. We can't judge it. We can, what we can do is we can look back, and look at what they were dealing with during the time, and kind of like utilize the information that they had available to them at that time. And so,
Right.
what's important is that the majority of their ideas were very good, and it created several generations of freedom and prosperity that we now get to partake in.
Right. I think the idea that the founders didn't struggle or see the irony of the words that they were putting down. Like that all men are created or equal. I think it's highly disingenuous to think that they didn't realize the irony of their words. With like the circumstances of their times. Because like again,
Right.
yeah, like a bunch of them were slave owners. Like Thomas Jefferson, he was a slave owner, but that doesn't mean like he didn't struggle and he didn't like wrestle with like um, the societal norm of that time of having slaves, and his idea of like all men created being equal. It's just like, oh, and people will are now crying out for George Washington statues and Thomas Jefferson monuments to be like torn down or whatever because they own slaves. But it's like, yes, they but that doesn't mean that they didn't wrestle with like that contradiction. And
Right.
it is ultimately what they put down in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, that led to the slaves being freed. Because they knew, like they basically they knocked the first domino over, essentially.
Yeah, and around that time, that's it was a lot of people were wrestling with that idea
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, you had John Adams, our second president, who was a huge abolitionist and was very anti-slave. I believe Ben Franklin was an abolitionist, um, and like I said, they were wrestling with this idea from the very beginning, and it's like, okay, well, let's and to make sure that they got like the Bill of Rights signed and all this stuff, like they is all right. We'll maintain the status quo for X number of years, and then we'll revisit this topic, knowing well they would be mostly dead by that point, but it's like, but we'll let the government at the time like revisit this idea and see what to do about it,
Right.
and
And it's kind of a testament to like their faith in the next generation that it's like we can't tackle it right now, but we'll leave it to future generations to correct the mistakes of not just them like as a group, but like of humanity, because it's a stain on humanity that we uh, had allowed slavery to run that long.
Right.
So
It's something too that I think it all is also missed in the signing of the Declaration of Independence is, well, for one, unlike the French Revolution where they just burned everything to the ground and destroyed their society, uh, the founders were wanting to build on what worked from the old world and then kind of add in things that they believed would be the best system of government and life and liberty. And so that's how, this whole in our country was founded on an idea, not people, but an idea. And for all those men that they wrote this document down and then they signed their name to it, they had, because they believed in it so much, and them signing this document could have been a death sentence.
yeah, I mean, it was an act of treason. It was
Yeah.
it was actual act of treason because they were still British citizens or British subjects under the king, and like them declaring that they are now an independent state. That was treason.
And yeah, I think that's something that is missed nowadays, because a lot of times that so many people don't have the courage to put their name to something that they really believe in, knowing that I might lose my job, I might make someone feel uncomfortable, or what have you. And you look at our founders, and they were willing to die because they believed in this country and the idea behind it so much.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I think, and well, I think people don't understand, like, for those of you who never took in the time to read the Declaration of Independence, here's the TLDR uh, version of it. It's basically the world's greatest Dear John letter.
Yeah.
I mean, because I never really read it before. I other than like the first paragraph, I never gone further than that.
Oh,
but
it's beautiful. I think do you think we should read it for the audience? It's not very long.
Well, yeah. But yeah, it's basically listing. Yeah, again, as I said, it's the world's greatest Dear John letter, and it cites all the ways how the king was not treating us well, and the reasons why we were breaking off from the British Empire. And I think it was just so great. It was like literally the greatest Dear John letter. It's like, we're breaking up with you.
A lot of people think that it was just because of taxes that they broke off. It was a lot more than just that. I think the taxation without representation was kind of the last straw.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of things that were going on in the colonies at the time that were they felt were just not right. And
because like one of the things was like the quartering of soldiers. Like the British Army could just come into your house and just kick you out and take over your house. That was like one of the big things.
Yeah. And so yeah, it was just and that's why a lot of the amendments in the Constitution that we have that's why they're there.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and just like a really quick Reader's Digest version, the Constitution is basically house rules. Yeah, this is like house rules and a chore wheel. It's like this is what the president's going to do. This is what the Senate and the Congress is going to do. This is what the judicial is going to do. And it was basically a chore wheel.
Yeah, and it's kind of a way to make sure that no one, gained too much power.
Right.
It kept everyone in check, and for the most part, has done a pretty good job. Although, the way some things are being run right now, it's like if it wasn't for this damn Constitution and the way
Yeah, exactly. It's like it wasn't for this
emperor.
chore wheel. And it's funny because like everyone like is losing their minds over everything Trump does, and it just makes you want to ask them, like, whoa, like, wouldn't it be great if the president didn't have so much power or sway over the government? I think we have a chore wheel that says that the president doesn't have to do all those things.
Well, the one thing that I find really troubling is obviously, like, we've talked about, there's the migrant crisis, from Mexico to here,
Mm-hmm.
and you have these protesters that are saying, it's like, well, President Trump could change this with his stroke of his pen and all this. It's like, well, no, he can't, see, because he's not an emperor, and
Right, yeah, he's not the king.
That's not his job. It's the job of the legislators who put this, law into place, and now that it's being enforced, we see the trouble of it. And so it's like, okay, well, the legislators, which are the people that are complaining about everything, are not willing to change the law. They're not,
right, yeah, like
or when there was a idea that was put out there, they decided, a lot of people voted it down. So
like when Chuck Schumer, did that press conference with saying like, oh, President Trump could fix it with a stroke of his pen. He was passing the buck off to Trump, even though it was his problem, and it really was his problem because he was in office when those laws were written.
Yeah.
So this is literally his mess, but he's deflecting responsibility for it onto Trump.
It's kind of a weird irony is that these guys, say what you will about, like, whatever you think about Donald Trump or whatever president,
mm-hmm.
And then they're complaining that, like, oh, he could change this with the stroke of his pen. It's like, why are you giving him so much power? The executive branch should not have. I mean, there is power of the executive branch, but that is not where his power lies. He can't just make laws up, like Obama did, and just do things without the Congress.
Right. I mean, like, yeah, and all the tweets that he's putting out, like putting pressure on Congress, like, oh, Congress, hurry up and write up a law, just whatever law. I don't even care anymore. Just put it on a napkin and I'll sign it. But they keep not wanting to do their job.
And that's the crazy thing is, the executive branch is there to kind of like protect us from protect the borders, all that stuff. The legislature is there to make laws, and the judicial is there to enforce them and not interpret the Constitution, but defend the Constitution.
Yeah, or just make sure that the laws line up with the Constitution.
It's not like the Bible. It's not a living document. We've really gone away from where I think we're supposed to be in a lot of ways. I mean, like there's every few generations where I think our country is definitely gets to a crossroads, and we have to. Who was it, Reagan, that said that was it democracy is always like a generation away from like dying out?
Maybe.
I don't remember if it was him, but it's somebody.
I I know it was. I think it was George Washington who said like, who emphasized I don't know, that understood that democracies can like fail within a generation.
Yeah, and maybe that was where Reagan was getting it from.
Yeah.
I could be butchering the quotes all again. Anyways,
of course,
but anyways,
that's another mark of this show is Robert just destroying quotes, or misquoting quotes.
Don't believe everything you see on TV. Abraham Lincoln. It's but the point is that we have to work hard to maintain what makes the United States we have to preserve that idea. And we're not, like I said, we're not a country of people. We're a country of an idea and a country of laws. And this is, I don't like how our government, I think, has become way too big.
Mm-hmm.
And we're probably never going to get rid of a lot of how big it's gotten. But I'd like it to, like, all right, this is it. No more.
Right. I think I forget who said it, but they said the idea of having a small government is like completely out of the question nowadays. But we can still have a limited government.
Yeah, that's kind of like how I see it too.
Yeah, because I mean, with the size of government that we have right now is like it's the one that we're gonna get. Like that's why I didn't freak out so much about like Trump not getting his appointments for his cabinet or whatever.
Right.
It was like good, fine, like that's one less bureaucrat that we have to deal with, or that has like power for no other reason than he was appointed to it by the president or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, so I was like, so everyone was like freaking out, like it's like, oh man, like like he doesn't have a full cabinet. It's like I don't care. That means it's one less talentless hack that's getting a government paycheck.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I just I encourage everyone, this 4th of July. I mean, yeah, go shoot off fireworks, grill up some hamburgers and hot dogs, and enjoy the the freedom that we do have. But I also encourage you, go back. It's not a very long document. Go read the Declaration of Independence, and get into a little bit into the thinking and the that the founding fathers had for the idea for this country. And just they're definitely flawed men in a lot of ways, but man, like this is I think one of the greatest documents in human history. It started, it created. This was the jumping off point for the freest nation that the world has ever seen, and even better, if you visit Washington D.C., if you go to I think it's the National Archives Museum, they actually have the original. One of the original copies of the Declaration of Independence that you can go and see and actually read the words. It's, I mean, that's there's not too many places in the world where the document that started it all can still be read.
Yeah, take that, Magna Carta.
Yeah.
America, sweet America, God done shed his grace on thee.